Hello everyone and welcome to Kanai's Lab. In today's video, we are taking a deep dive into CNN, Convolution Neural Network for image recognition. As you know, deep learning algorithms often use neural network to learn patterns from the data. Interestingly, neural networks are inspired by our human brain's nervous system that process information, but this time in a computational form. Now, while there are many types of neural networks, when it comes to solving an image related problem like image classification, object detection, or face recognition, the go-to model is convolutional neural network or simply CNN. The question is, why CNN? Because CNNs are specifically designed to understand visual data by capturing spatial features, something standard neural networks struggle with. So in this video, let's break down CNN step by step and understand how they work in tackling real world image recognition tasks with the help of some animation and simple explanation. What exactly happens inside a CNN when it analyzes an image? A CNN generally has two main parts, the feature extraction block and the classification block. A CNN starts with an input layer that collect the image as matrix of pixel values. Then the feature extraction block uses convolution layers and ReLU layers to extract important features, followed by pooling layers to reduce the image size while keeping key information. Finally, the classification block uses fully connected layers to combine these features and an output layer to make the final prediction. So let us understand the process in detail. We are now on the first step of CNN, taking and representing image on the input layer. Have you ever thought how a machine sees an image? Unlike humans, machines don't recognize shapes or colors directly. They understand the image as numbers. For black and white or grayscale images, this, for an example, like this 100 and digit 8, the image is represented as a matrix of pixel values. Each number in the matrix indicates the intensity of light at the spot, that is 0 for black and 250 for white, and the values in between for shades of gray. This pixel matrix becomes the input to the CNN. The input layer of the CNN takes this numerical data and treating it just like any other data set for computation, pattern recognition, and learning, etc. Similarly, for colored image, we use three separate matrices on each for red, green, blue channels, together forming what's known as an RGB image. So we are now beginning our detailed walkthrough of how CNN work. Let's assume this is the pixel representation of an image, which is a grayscale image, just a 6x6 matrix for illustration purpose. Each number here represents the intensity of pixel from dark to light. So now, according to the CNN architecture, we need to prepare our convolution filters, also called kernels. For this example, we will use a 3x3 filters, which is 5 in numbers. These filters are initialized with random values at the start, and the role is to slide over the image and extract the features like edges, textures, and patterns, etc. Now let us understand how the convolution operation works with a simple video. So this is going to be an external video. So let me play this video for a second. Basically, in convolution, we slide a filter or kernel over the image and multiply the corresponding values and then sum it up. This gives us one value in the output, which we call as feature map. Is it interesting video? So thanks to the creator, we will be moving back to our presentation. So yeah, here we take the first top three, that is 3x3 picture. We can see here. So we will be starting our convolution. So we are going to take our first 3x3 portion of the input image and apply the filter. So we multiply each element one by one. So basically it's a element wise multiplication. Element of the filter with corresponding image pixel and then add all the results. So we calculate here 81 into 0, 2 into 1, 209 into 1 plus etc. etc. So we will be getting the result number as 515 in this case, which goes into the top left cell of the feature map. So you can see we then move the filter one step to the right and repeat the same process for the next cell. And this continues the sliding operation over the entire image. So this we call have a concept of padding and the stride. Let me show another animation for your better understanding. So this is the concept of padding and the stride. The stride is the number of pixels we move the filter at each time. And if the stride is 1, which means that we move the filter 1 pixel at a time, horizontally and vertically. And if the stride is 2, we would skip 1 pixel between the positions and the output feature map would be smaller. So when you call it as padding, padding is about adding a border of zeros around the original image. You can see here on the top. This helps preserve the spatial dimensions. But here, if we don't use padding, this will be the image as it is. And it depends upon the problem. Either you can use the padding of 1 or 2, whatever you want. So let us go back to the presentation. So here we used a padding of 0 and stride of 1. So with that, we computed the process and we repeated the process. So how do we compute it? So we have the 515. Similarly, the entire next stride, next padding, everything comes. So we created a featured map of 4 by 4. You may wonder how the 6 by 6 initial image converted into a 4 by 4 feature map with the use of a kernel size of 3 by 3. So we have some equations for that. So the output size of the feature map is always the input size minus filter size divided by stride plus 1. Basically 6 minus 3 by 1 plus 1, which is 4 in our case. So our feature map is all having size of 4 by 4. We have the first feature map corresponds to the first kernel filter. So the process is going to repeat entire cases and across all the filter, allowing us to extract different features from the image like edges, corner, patterns, etc. Each filter in CNN produces a feature map that highlights specific patterns from the input image. In our example, we have each 3 by 3 filter applied to 6 by 6 image with a stride of 1 and no padding. Basically, it produces feature map. How many feature map? We have 5 feature map corresponding to the 5 kernel filter. So this is going to be our final feature map after sliding the filter over the entire image. So we are moving to the next step, which is nothing but called pooling process. So after generating the feature map using the convolution layer, the next step is to pass the feature map through the pooling layer. The pooling helps to reduce the size of the feature map, which decreases the number of parameters and the computation in the network, making it more efficient. So what exactly the pooling filter? Unlike the convolution filter that have learnable weights and perform computation, a pooling filter is a simple fixed size window with empty matrix that slides over the feature map. It doesn't perform anything. Instead, it summarizes the value within the window in a specific way. There are different types of pooling operations available. So the pooling can be max pooling, which takes the maximum value from the window, or it can be minimum pooling that takes the minimum value, or average pooling, which computes the average of the values in the window. So in this example, we will consider max pooling with a filter size of 2 by 2. Let's apply this into our first feature map. We begin with placing a 2 by 2 max pooling of the window on the top left corner of the feature map. Suppose the values in the window are 515, 309, 347, and 553. So the maximum value among these is 553. So that's the value we keep. We then slide the window across the feature map, typically with a stride of 2. and that repeats operation on a 2 by 2 block. After processing the entire feature map like this, we get a new smaller matrix. For example, if the original feature map was 4 by 4, after applying 2 by 2 max pooling, the size reduces to 2 by 2. This smaller matrix is our pooled feature map, and it retains the most significant features while reducing the spatial dimensions. So after applying 2 by 2 max pooling operation, a 4 by 4 feature map is reduced to a 2 by 2 pooled feature map. This reduction helps in two important ways. One, it lowers the computational cost and it reduces the memory usage, making the model faster and more efficient. So with each 4 by 4 filter map, we have many filter map. We have 5 filter maps are there, each size of 4 by 4. This entire feature map is processed in the same way, resulting on its own 2 by 2 pooled version. So if we begin with 5 feature map, the max pooling generate 5 corresponding 2 by 2 pooled map. The purpose of max pooling is to retain the most significant value in each 2 by 2 region, helping preserving the key features while discarding less important information. And now here you can see the pooled feature map for all 5 features. Pooled feature map will undergo activation as per defined. We now completed the feature map for the first feature extraction. So we can see here. So these are all the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pooled feature map, which after the pooling operation. So this is the output of the pooling operation. So we completed our convolution, we completed our pooling. So sometime in a CNN architecture, there may be many layers of convolution plus pooling combined. It is not mandatory, always pooling will follow by convolution. So there will be multiple blocks. So to handle the complex pattern, so people use in a different way. So next, we will be moving to our classification block. This block takes the output from the final pooling layer, usually after activation function like ReLU, and it prepares it for the prediction. But before the classification, there is a key transition steps. Each CNN which produces a 5 by 5 or a 4 by 4, which basically a matrix representation. CNN requires a 1D vector input to the fully connected dense layer. So we need to flatten the 2D pool map feature map into 1D vector. So we will be calling the process called flattening. For example, if you have 5 pooled features map of 2 by 2, this gives a total of 20 values. These values are combined to form a flattened 1D vector, which becomes the input to the next stage. Here is what the flattened vector looks like. The vector is then passed into the fully connected layers, which behave like a traditional neural network. These layers learn how to combine the features to make accurate predictions. They just adjust the internal way to minimize the prediction error. Finally, the signal reaches to the output layer, which generate the final result, such as class probability in the image classification task. So this is the summary. So in summary, a convolution neural network CN has two main parts, the feature extraction block and the classification block. The input image represents the matrix of pixel values. It first goes to the convolution filter with the size and the number can be defined by you to produces a feature maps by detecting pattern like edges and textures. Then comes pooling, which using the empty fixed size matrix, we taken 2 by 2 in this case, which produces the feature map size while retaining the key features. Multiple layers of convolution and pooling may be used to handle the complex image data. The output often an n-dimensional array, which is passed through the activation function and then flattened into 1D vector to prepare for classification or any kind of prediction. This vector goes into one or more fully connected layers which perform the final predictions. With that, we conclude the video on understanding the principles of CNN for image recognition task. So even though it was little detailed and slightly lengthy video, we hope it help you to grasp understanding the process in detail. So thank you for watching. Stay tuned for Kanai's AI Lab for more informative content on AI and related domain. Once again, thanks everyone for watching the video.